And we're live here from Marquette, Michigan. It's the Revved Up 906 podcast, a Detroit Pistons podcast to be exact. And I'm Hudson.
And I'm Ryan.
Your hosts for episode 2, part 2. We just did part 1, which we talked about free agents. So if you didn't watch that, go watch it. Yeah. Leave a comment. What's a free agent that we missed out on that we should have talked about? Go comment and like it, and don't forget to subscribe.
Oh, yeah.
So for episode 2, part 2, we are going to be talking about trade ideas to better the Pistons roster. What are trades that the Pistons do to become contenders? So Pistons community, I've been listening to your complaints, and it's always our defense sucks. Our defense can't do this and it can't do that. Well, I've solved that issue. We are giving up quite a bit. Don't get me wrong, but I think we have an answer. And I think a lot with our Pistons roster, we have a lot of fat on the end of the bench, and we need to cut that fat and get rid of some players. And so my first trade proposal, Ryan, we drove here together, and he didn't love my trade ideas, but I'm cutting the fat, Ryan. I'm taking care of the fat at the end of the bench. Some bench guys that I just don't feel are it right now.
But the question is with that.
Yeah.
Cut too many. Who's actually going to want to play in Detroit?
Our roster is very healthy. I think a guy like Cade is going to want to, a lot of guys are going to want to play with Cade.
Okay.
Especially with this guy I think I'm proposing a trade for. So my first trade is Corey Joseph, who, older vet, consistent, but not really consistently good. He's consistently mediocre. Hamidou Diallo, uber athletic, dunks. His head almost touches the top of the gym. Very athletic, but can't shoot threes. We need 3-point shooting. We need a little bit of more scoring than he can offer. Nerlens Noel, the third guy. So, as the listeners can tell, 3 guys I'm getting rid of here in this trade. Nerlens Noel, a guy that me and you both have wanted, a lanky center for years. A guy like Mitchell Robinson is a guy we always wanted. Mm-hmm. Third guy, Nerlens Noel, who I just don't think he's had small minutes so far. He came off an injury earlier this season, but I just don't think he mixes well with the team. Guys like him and Kevin Knox don't seem like they're getting to know the guys on the team. I think they're just going to be betweener guys that are just coming to leave. Mm-hmm. So Nerlens Noel is my third guy for last year's Defensive Player of the Year, the first point guard to win that award since the glove, Gary Payton, Marcus Smart. Smart, I call him Smart, I think. Smart can quarterback your offense, lock down guys like John Morant, Damian Lillard, Steph Curry. The list goes on, but he can also get a bucket when you need it. And coming off the bench, we need a guy that can go get a bucket, that can also play defense, because Corey Joseph's defense is not it. And, we just played Jalen Brunson the other night on the Knicks, and he tore us up. He scored, I think, mid-20s, and that just wouldn't happen if Smart was guarding him. Before you speak, Ryan, I can tell you're kind of chomping at the bit. I want to just talk about one more point, because I'm going to defend Marcus Smart with all I got. People are going to say, well, Hudson, Killian Hayes is a great defender for a point guard position. I agree. I don't disagree with that. And he gets steals here and there, but he's not the best defending point guard in the league like Marcus Smart. And you just can't deny it because he just won Defensive Player of the Year. We need another vet. A vet, with being such a young team, I think our main focus should be vets, just because we need guys to corral our roster. Yep. There's not a true leader right now, I don't believe. And I think a Marcus Smart is a rally the troops guy. He gets in interviews and he's firing people up. You hear he's mic'd up every once in a while. He's communicating. He's yelling around. And I'm just a big Marcus Smart guy. And I want to see red in his hair, man. I just think that'd be so cool.
All right. I have 2 points.
Okay, let's get into it.
Point number 1. It is a extremely unrealistic trade.
Okay.
And point number 2.
I want to know why it's unrealistic. Let's talk about it.
It's unrealistic. Well, okay. It's unrealistic because, it's part 2 is into that.
Mm-hmm.
It's unrealistic because if Boston is wanting to win a championship right now, with their roster, the way it's constructed, are you going to give up Marcus Smart, who is a defensive anchor for you, for Corey Joseph, Hamidou Diallo, and Nerlens Noel? My answer, if I were a GM, is a fat no.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing, too, with the Celtics roster, I would expect with Corey Joseph, I think they'd cut him immediately. I don't think they need him. They got Peyton Pritchard. That was my biggest point, is Pritchard is too good to be a third-string point guard. He just is. He's not great, but and they just picked up Malcolm Brogdon. He's a very Malcolm Brogdon guy, and he can defend. He's not a defensive-centric guy. He's definitely a floor general. But they got Peyton Pritchard. They got Malcolm Brogdon. And right now they have Smart. I think they have room to lose a guy like Smart. And I also don't think there's been times when we watched the Pistons a Celtics game a couple weeks back. I think Smart and Tatum don't connect. I never see them really cheerlead each other. They just don't seem to connect. And I think they would be willing to lose Marcus. Because, one, Robert Williams, who's hurt right now, I think they could utilize a Nerlens Noel.
Yeah, but how would Nerlens Noel do with Al Horford on the court? That just won't work.
Well, they wouldn't play at the same time.
No, they wouldn't, but they could. If there was this injury or they lost a guy or whatever it may be, and Nerlens Noel had to step in, do you want Nerlens Noel and Al Horford together on the court at the same time? No. They're pretty much the same size. I would throw Al Horford at the 4 and Nerlens Noel at the 5.
Yeah, it's just Horford's slower.
Yep, and Horford can shoot compared to Nerlens, but I still wouldn't even do that.
No, I wouldn't either.
Hamidou Diallo, Boston pretty much had their own Hamidou Diallo and got rid of him.
With who?
Romeo Langford. They're very
Hami's
similar.
better than Romeo, though.
Yeah, but they're very similar. They tried having a Hami on the roster. It didn't work.
Yeah, but that's the thing, too. They don't have an uber athletic guy anymore because Grant Williams isn't that. He's very mid when it comes to athleticism. Tatum is athletic. He's everything you could ever want. And Brown is a great offensive player, great perimeter defender. So I think they could use a guy like Hami, one, because it'll make them a little bit thicker, because Malcolm Brogdon isn't anything to be excited about athletically. So I think having a guy like Hamidou alongside great scorers would be a great situation for him, because then he's not throwing up weird corner threes that hit the back of the backboard. He's getting set up because guys like Tatum and Brown draw so much attention. I think guys like Hami are going to get a lot of looks with guys like Tatum around him.
Yeah, and the Pistons, though, think about how much they're going to have to pay Marcus Smart to ride the bench. Pretty much. I mean,
he won't ride the bench.
He's not going to ride the bench, but he would become a bench player. Would Marcus Smart want to be a bench player?
He'd have starter minutes, though. He'd come off the bench, but he'd have starter minutes. Okay. He'd have 25 minutes, I think.
Okay, because I just don't think in a world that Marcus Smart would want to come off the bench on a team like this where he could clearly start, where in Boston, he's a starter. So I just think, and then the money situation too with that is you'd be paying him a ton of money, and we're cutting off a lot of fat with this potential trade. What does that mean about free agents available? Because we would have to take in the players that are going to be very cheap.
How much money are we losing, though? It's only like $3-4 million, I thought. I thought that's how much it was. It wasn't anything too drastic where we couldn't pick up a free agent. I didn't think. because I pretty much matched when I came up with that trade. I matched the however much those three players are to pretty much one Marcus Smart. They're right around the same value.
And that was Nerlens Noel, Corey Joseph, and Hami.
Correct. Yep. Marcus Smart. I almost wanted to throw in a pick there. I want him so bad.
I think you'd need to throw in a pick to get him.
Yeah, maybe a second round.
So we would be taking it. We'd open up $2 million in cap space.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of money.
No.
Because we'd be taking on $17 million. But Boston would actually be gaining more money in the sense that they'd take on an extra $2 million.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd be saving money,
mm-hmm.
realistically.
Yep.
But it's still a hefty contract at the end of the day.
but rather than paying three guys, you're getting a 3-for-1. And plus, he's a better quality player than any of those three guys.
No, I'm not denying that Smart isn't better than all those guys because I love Marcus Smart.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see how this could happen.
And I totally get, like, the Celtics are obviously a contender. They were in the finals last season. They're probably not going to get rid of their starting point guard.
No.
But I love a world where that would happen. I love Smart coming off the bench or, Cade getting an injury, and then you just know there's not a whole lot of drop off, especially like a season like this where Cade hasn't taken the next step yet. I just love a world where Marcus Smart's coming off the bench. So Ryan Young, getting into your first trade proposal. Let's hear it.
All right. So Detroit receives Dario Saric and Josh Okogie, and we give up Nerlens Noel.
Okay. What do you like about Dario?
Dario, he's a great stretch four. We look at what Phoenix had when he's on the court in their playoff run a couple of years back. He was a key factor.
Mm-hmm.
In the past season when they missed him in the playoffs, they weren't as good, and you could tell. His career statistics, 11.6 points per game, 5.8 rebounds, 1.9 assists, 0.2 blocks, 0.6 steals, and shooting 44%. I would take that as a stretch four because we need shooting. Dario can shoot, and he can defend.
Mm-hmm.
And then Okogie there, averaging 6.1 points, 2.8 rebounds, 1.1 assists, 0.4 blocks, 0.9 steals, shooting 40%. He's a great defender. If he has to shoot, he can shoot, but he's mainly known for defense. He actually, in 2018-19, his rookie season,
mm-hmm.
He was 18th in the NBA for the highest steal percentage. That is pretty darn good for a rookie.
Mm-hmm.
So I would take that any day.
So what was that guy's last name again?
See, I think I'm butchering it, but
Okay.
I want to say Okogie.
Okogie. The thing with taking on two guys, 2-for-1, is Okogie going to be taking minutes from Isaiah Livers and Hamidou? Like, where does he come into like the rotation?
I think he comes off as like an 8-9 guy, because when you need defense, you sub him in.
Mm-hmm.
When you need offense, take him out. Have like Hami go in there, or have even like, because in this trade, Corey Joseph wouldn't get traded. Have Corey Joseph go in there.
Mm-hmm.
But we have offensive weapons. We don't have defensive weapons. You had a guy like Okogie there who can come off the bench and just be an immediate impact on the court on the defensive side of things. I think that could really help.
Where does Dario Saric go into the rotation? Like, whose minutes is he taking? Like,
I think he takes Bagley's minutes.
Okay.
Because he doesn't need a lot to have success.
Mm-hmm.
But I think giving him at least 15 minutes, he could easily help us.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're needing instant offense, plug him in. Have him, Bojan, Sadiq. I would have Saric probably at the 5 in that situation, because Saric can get boards. So throw Saric at the 5, Bojan at the 4, Bay at the 3, Ivy at the 2, and Cade at the 1. I think you're looking.
So you have him starting over Stu?
I mean, if you're looking for an offense, yes. An offensive lineup, I'd go Saric over Stu.
Oh, interesting. I like Dario Saric. You know, he used to play for the Sixers, correct?
Yeah.
I always liked him when we played the Sixers 4 times a year, being in the Eastern Conference. I always liked him when he played against us. You know, I didn't see much of his film when he was on the Suns. I didn't really watch the playoffs. I'm always so bitter during that time. Jealous, you could say also. But you know, I think he does. You know, he does seem like a good scorer. Especially, he always torched us. He always did when the Sixers played us. The Sixers always play us well, and he always scorched us. So from what I've seen, I do think he's a good scorer. But I obviously haven't watched him in a couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah. Another trade. My second trade. I have Detroit receiving Onyeka Okongwu from Atlanta.
Okay.
And we'd give up Killian Hayes and a 2nd-round pick.
Interesting. So with a big, heavy roster, like, you know, I was asking before, where do you see him? You know, do you see him taking minutes from Bagley like the one before?
Yeah, I think Onyeka takes minutes from Bagley.
Okay.
Right away. I think Onyeka is a much better player than Bagley is.
Mm-hmm.
I think he may take minutes, like maybe 1 or 2 minutes away from Duran, but that's just because he's proven he can play, and he's much longer. So I would honestly throw maybe Duran at the 4 and Onyeka at the 5, given that.
Okay.
And I would bring Stu off the bench. I think that could work.
Does Onyeka Okongwu, does he shoot threes at all?
Not really.
Yeah.
He's more paint dominant, which is okay for us because he's great on defense.
Mm-hmm.
His career averages are 6.5 points, 4.7 rebounds, 0.8 assists, 0.9 blocks, 0.6 steals, and he's shooting 67% in his career.
Yeah, you know, a worry, like, you know, something that pops in my head is that Jalen Duran does not leave the paint.
Yeah.
Like and I think Okongwu also is very similar to that. So I worry about congestion and spacing. But if Okongwu, you know, like we've seen Stu over the last couple of years develop a 3-point shot, I think if Okongwu, you know, developed a 3-point shot, I think that would help. But just with a starting lineup, you know, we see Cade want to drive a lot. Mm-hmm. You know, we see, you know, Sadiq wanting to try to post up players all the time now. It's not his game, but it's what he's trying to do. And I just feel like there would be a problem with congestion because we both know Duran is not going to be a shooter.
Yeah.
He can hardly make free throws.
But no, I think if you're looking purely for defense, I think this is a great guy to bring in because he's a great shot blocker.
Mm-hmm.
And he's very lanky. And but like, look at Atlanta right now. They have Onyeka starting with Clint Capella.
Yeah,
and then if you don't have Clint Capella in, you still have John Collins. So those 3 together, they're freakishly long.
Mm-hmm.
So and they make it work.
Yeah, and they got Cam Reddish now.
Yeah. So if they can make it work in Atlanta, I think we can make it work in Detroit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially if Cade gets better. You know, the only thing that what Atlanta has that we don't have is Trae Young, who is a terrific point guard in my opinion. Cade is also great, but he's not all-star level yet, I don't think. He does draw a lot of attention, but I just don't think he's on the level of a Trae Young yet.
Trae Young is a little overrated.
I like Trae Young, man.
I think he's a little overrated.
He's a baby Curry, man. I like him. I like that he plays the villain part too.
His hair is terrible.
yeah. We can't say much though. But I do like. I've always liked Trae Young since he played in high school. You're probably not going to like my second trade either because you went after my 3 guys. I get it. But I'm not a Michigan State guy. I'm go blue all day. Yep. Way to represent. But I've always liked this player ever since he's been on MSU. My second trade proposal is very similar to the first, except one exception. Corey Joseph, Nerlens Noel. I think even if you listen to episode 1 and 2, people have kind of figured out I'm not a huge Corey Joseph fan. And then you're not going to like this because we were just watching the game last night together, the Toronto Raptors game, and he played great. Ryan's a big fan of Alec Burks. He is my 3rd guy included in this trade. and I want Jaren Jackson. I'm a big fan of Jaren Jackson. I like his off-the-court fits on Instagram. I'm always liking his posts. But also, Stu and Duren have proven early that they are both not at their best when they're on the floor together. They're just, their games are a little similar, so they just don't play well together. They play better apart. So I believe whoever is starting at the 5, whether it's Stu or Duren in the future, they need help stretching the floor, which Jaren Jackson can do. And honestly, yes, Burks has been playing well. I know we just referenced that. And I still don't mind giving up these 3 guys for a 23-year-old Jaren Jackson.
Yeah. I
mean, he's been in the NBA 4 years, and he's only 23. Like, I was expecting him to be like 25, 26. And I looked him up, and he was 23. I was like, what? Yes, I know what people are going to say. Well, Isaiah Stewart's starting to stretch the floor. Yes, to a certain extent, but Jaren will give what Stewart needs help with in the paint, which is blocking shots and on-ball defense. And I just like the potential starting lineup of Cade, Ivy, Bojan, Jaren, and Stu. I just love that starting lineup. And I'd sometimes, trade Stu and Duren. But just for people's reference of Jaren's last year's stats, he actually hasn't played a game yet for Memphis this year. He's coming off an injury, but 16 points, 6 boards, and 1 assist. And I'm sure he didn't quite average a 1 block, but I'm sure he was in that area.
So my takeaways for this trade. I'm sorry I have to do this, but again, very unrealistic. The reason I say that is because Memphis is very guard heavy. They have Tyus Jones.
Who's garbage, by the way. He's terrible. I'd rather Corey Joseph.
That's a little bold.
He's way more consistent, Corey.
Tyus is younger and faster. And he doesn't have a girl shot. Corey Joseph kind of has a girl
Does he? I never really thought of that.
Yeah, kind of. But anyways, Tyus Jones, John Conchar, John Morant, Desmond Bane, Dylan Brooks.
Desmond Bane's not a point guard.
He's a guard.
He's a stretch 3, though.
Desmond Bane is 6'5".
Yeah. So you think he's a point guard?
No, I said he's a guard, not a point guard. I said he's a guard, not a point guard. But no. Then they also have Vince Williams Jr., who is a rookie. And then they have Danny Green. So they are very...
They have Danny Green? I never even realized that.
Yeah, they are very guard heavy. So that's why a Corey Joseph, Alec Burks situation with this. What are you going to do with all your other guards? You're going to have to make a move somewhere.
Well, and like the trade before, I do think they cut Corey Joseph. I think they would keep Alec Burks. I think that is... Desmond Bane is a great catch and shoot player. He's a good defender. But Alec Burks is kind of a go-getter. He goes and gets shots. And Tyus Jones just isn't really that. And, of course, John Morant's that.
Have you looked at Bane's stat line this season so far? He's averaging like 25, 26 points per game right now.
Yeah, because John Morant.
Well, yeah, but still, Bane can play.
Oh, yeah. I didn't say he can't play. He's a great shooter. He did the 3-point contest during All-Star Weekend last year. The dude's a beast.
Yeah, he's also pretty jacked.
But, yeah, he's jacked out of his mind.
But no, I break this down. Do you think who were your guys in that trade?
Corey Joseph, Nerlens Noel, and Alec Burks.
Okay. Do you think Alec Burks and Nerlens Noel is as much value as Jaren Jackson Jr.?
I originally put in a first-round pick, but also... Who's starting? Steven Adams is their starting center.
Yep.
So, which Steven Adams, good center. I put him in the upper echelon of centers in the NBA.
They also have Brandon Clark.
Yeah, which is really a power forward. He really shouldn't be a center. He'd be really good with Nerlens Noel.
They also have Xavier Tillman, another Michigan State guy. He's not bad. He's a good role player.
Nerlens Noel's better.
Jake LaRavia, I have no idea who he is, but he's a rookie from Indiana State. David Roddy, also another rookie. And Santi Aldama.
Which are nobodies.
Oh, Santi? I said that too last year. He's actually pretty darn good.
Yeah, I've never heard of him.
he can shoot. But anyways, my point is, I don't think Memphis is going to get as much value back as they'd be giving up.
They definitely get more role players and they lose a starter.
I think they're one player away from being a championship team. So I think them giving up Jaren Jackson Jr. would be a mistake, given that he's still only 23.
Yep.
Yeah, that's my only takeaways. Not that they're bad trades. Not that they're bad. I just view them as, like, if I were a GM, would I accept that trade? And if I'm a GM in 2K, I'm not accepting that trade.
I just love Jaren Jackson.
Although
so
I will
much.
say I do trade for Jaren Jackson Jr. a lot in 2K. As the Pistons, I do.
He's really
trade for
good
him
in
a lot.
2K.
Yeah, he is. But I don't see that trade happening. Just in the sense of value.
So Ryan, what was your second trade idea for the Detroit Pistons?
A 3-team trade. Ooh. Yeah. So we get Romeo Langford, who I mentioned in episode 2, part 1. San Antonio receives Duncan Robinson in a 2023 first-round pick. And Miami receives Corey Joseph, Doug McDermott, and a 2027 second-round pick. The way I see it is, yes, we'd get Romeo Langford, who still hasn't really done much. He's a very young guy, but he has a ton of potential, and he's uber athletic, and he can shoot.
And who's he with right now?
He is with San Antonio.
Okay. And how many minutes is he getting with San Antonio?
I'm not sure, actually. Let me look.
Because didn't we played San Antonio in the preseason, I think.
I think so.
But yeah, I mean, Romeo, he was a guy that was really good in college. I can't remember exactly what college he played for, but he was one of those guys, or he was highly touted heading into draft night.
Went to Indiana.
Okay, that's what it was. I knew it was a red team. I just didn't want to misquote.
But yeah, this season alone, he is averaging 4.3 points, 2.0 in rebounds, 0.4 assists. He's shooting 41.9%. That's not bad. Given that he's only played in 7 games this season, he's doing that much. I'm not going to deny it.
The thing with Romeo, too, we talked about in part 1, he's very similar to a Hamidou Diallo. Yep. Do you see us keeping Hamidou if we pick up Romeo?
Yeah, I think so. I think Romeo is obviously a project, as is Hami. But I would take the flyer on Romeo Langford and when you're only giving up Corey Joseph, pretty much.
Yeah,
and a second round pick.
Like I said, I'm not a huge Corey Joseph fan.
Yeah, but the fact that you'd be getting a young guy like him who still has a ton of potential, his ceiling is very high. I would take that flyer and only give up Corey Joseph and a second round pick. And honestly, this trade would actually benefit every team in it. Because Miami, yes, you'd lose shooting and Duncan Robinson, but you'd be getting a good vet point guard in Corey Joseph, and you'd be getting a good shooting stretch 4 in Doug McDermott. They'd also be getting a second round pick, which is nice. San Antonio getting Duncan Robinson and a first round pick. They love shooting there. If you look back, and you look back to when Danny Green was there on that historic team.
Very different team now.
Yeah,
but.
Very different team now, but. You add shooting and you get a first round pick, and all you really give up is Doug McDermott. I think San Antonio does this trade. I think Miami does this trade, and I think we should do this trade.
So Duncan Robinson ends up in San Antonio?
Yep.
Doesn't he have like a fat contract?
He does have a fat contract. I don't remember how much exactly.
It was like $100 million over 4 years, something around that range.
Yeah, he did get a fat contract, but I mean.
But if San Antonio can pay it.
Yeah, they definitely have the cap space.
They have no players.
Yeah. But that's my trade right there.
Well, I think that's going to wrap up part 2 of episode 2. This one's a little bit longer, so thank you for bearing with us, and thank you for listening to our trades. If you disagree or agree with our trades, leave a comment below. Make sure to like and subscribe, and follow us on Instagram at Revved.up906. and we are posting on there daily and everything like that. Make sure to subscribe. And episode 2, part 2, that's a little bit wordy. What do you think, Ryan?
Big time. It was big time.
All right, interesting. I thought part 1 deserved a big time.
Part 1 was okay. It was a good time. It was a good time. This one is big time.
Wow. Thank you for joining us for episode 2, part 2. And we will see you next week.